Elias Thorne was worth $82 million. He owned a steel manufacturing plant in Pittsburgh, 3 apartment complexes in Manhattan, and a patent for a drill bit component that was used in every oil rig from Texas to Saudi Arabia. But on a rainy Tuesday in November, Elias Thorne owned nothing but a bedpan, a plastic cup of lukewarm water, and a view of a brick wall from the window of room 304. He was 84 years old. His lungs were failing, pulmonary fibrosis, a souvenir from his early days on the factory floor, and his legs hadn't worked properly in 2 years. Room 304 was in The Pines, a luxury assisted living facility in Connecticut. It cost $12,000 a month. It had marble floors in the lobby and a grand piano that nobody played. It smelled of lavender cleaning spray and despair. Elias pressed the call button. He was thirsty. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Elias stared at the ceiling. He thought about his mansion in Greenwich. It was empty now, collecting dust. He thought about his vintage Jaguar collection, sold. He thought about his children, Marcus and Juliette. He hadn't seen them in 3 weeks. The door finally opened. It wasn't the nurse he expected, the grumpy one who smelled of cigarettes. It was a young woman he hadn't seen before. She looked about 25, wearing scrubs that were slightly too big for her. Her name tag read Sarah. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Thorne," she said, rushing in. She didn't sound annoyed. She sounded breathless. "The shift change was chaotic. You rang?" "Water," Elias croaked. "Of course." She didn't just fill the plastic cup. She dumped the lukewarm water out. She went to the pitcher, put in fresh ice, filled it, and inserted a straw. She adjusted the angle of his bed so he could sip without choking. "Better?" she asked, smiling. She had a kind face, tired but kind. "Ice," Elias whispered. "Nobody brings ice." "Water tastes like sad soup without ice," Sarah joked softly. She checked his chart. "It says here you like jazz. Want me to put some on?" Elias blinked. "You have time?" "For Duke Ellington? I always have time." She pulled out her phone, connected it to the small Bluetooth speaker on his nightstand, and played In a Sentimental Mood. For the first time in months, the room didn't feel like a waiting room for death. It felt like a room. 2 days later, the visitors arrived. It was a Saturday. Elias had been cleaned and shaved by Sarah, who had insisted he wear his silk pajamas instead of the hospital gown. "You're a mogul, Elias," she had told him. "Dress like one." The door opened. Marcus walked in first. Marcus was 45. He wore a suit that cost more than Sarah's car. He was on his phone. "Sell the crypto if it drops below 40. I don't care about the tax hit, just liquidate." He tapped the screen and hung up. "Hey, Dad." Juliette followed. She was 40, draped in cashmere, holding a Starbucks cup. She looked around the room with a wrinkled nose. "God, it smells like antiseptic in here," she sighed. "Hi, Daddy. You look tired." "I'm dying, Juliette," Elias said dryly. "It's exhausting work." "Don't be morbid," she waved her hand. "So, listen, we can't stay long. We have a brunch in the Hamptons, but we needed to talk to you about the Greenwich house." "What about it?" Marcus stepped forward. "Ideally, we want to list it now. The market is hot. If we wait until after, it goes into probate and sits there. If you sign the power of attorney over to me today, I can get it listed next week." Elias looked at his son. "You want to sell my home while I'm still alive?" "You're not using it, Dad," Marcus said, checking his watch. "And the upkeep is draining the estate. We're just trying to protect your assets." My assets, Elias thought. Not me. My assets. "I'm not signing anything today," Elias said. Juliette sighed, loud and dramatic. "Daddy, you're being difficult. We're trying to help you." "Help me?" Elias coughed, a rattle deep in his chest. Sarah, who was in the corner checking his vitals, stepped forward to help him, but Markus blocked her way. "Give him a minute," Markus snapped at Sarah. "We're having a family conversation. Do you mind giving us privacy?" Sarah looked at Elias. Elias nodded slightly. She left the room, but she left the door cracked open. "Look, Dad," Markus leaned over the bed. "The doctors say it's a matter of weeks. Don't make this hard on us. Just sign the paper. It simplifies the inheritance tax." Inheritance. The word hung in the air. "Get out," Elias whispered. "What?" "I said get out. Go to your brunch. I'm tired." Markus clenched his jaw. "Fine, we'll bring the notary next week. You need to be realistic, old man." They left. They didn't kiss him goodbye. They didn't ask how he was feeling. They didn't even notice the jazz music playing softly in the background. Sarah walked back in. She found Elias crying, silent tears rolling down his withered cheeks. She didn't say anything. She just pulled up a chair, took his hand that was spotted with age and shaking, and held it. "They're waiting," Elias whispered. "They're just waiting for the clock to run out." "I'm not waiting," Sarah said softly. "I'm right here, and I'm not going anywhere." Over the next 3 months, Sarah became Elias's world. She was a single mother, Elias learned. She had a 5-year-old son named Leo. She was working double shifts at the Pines to pay for nursing school. She drove a 2008 Honda that rattled when it started, but she never complained. She brought pictures of Leo to show Elias. She brought him homemade soup because the cafeteria food was mush. She read him the Wall Street Journal every morning because his eyes were too weak to read the fine print. One night, during a thunderstorm, the power flickered at the facility. Elias panicked. He hated the dark. It reminded him of the coal mines his father worked in. Sarah came in with a flashlight. "It's okay, Elias," she said. "I'm here." She sat with him for 4 hours in the dark. To pass the time, Elias told her stories. Not about money, but about his life. He told her about meeting his late wife, Martha, at a diner in 1960. He told her about the first drill bit he invented, sketching it on a napkin. He told her about the regret he felt working 80 hours a week while Markus and Juliette were growing up, thinking money was the same thing as love. "I ruined them," Elias admitted in the dark. "I gave them everything they wanted and nothing they needed. Now they are sharks, and I am the chum." "You can't blame yourself for who they are as adults," Sarah said gently. "You're a good man, Elias. I see that." "Do you?" "I do. You tipped the delivery boy $50 last week for a pizza you couldn't even eat. You ask about my son every day. You're not the shark, Elias. You're the whale. Big, lonely, and full of history." Elias chuckled. "A whale. I like that." "Sarah," he asked after a pause, "if you had $1 million, what would you do?" "Pay off my student loans," she answered instantly, "fix my car, and buy a house with a backyard for Leo. He's never had a backyard." "No yachts? No Lamborghinis?" "God, no," she laughed. "Just peace. I just want peace, and maybe a dishwasher that works." Elias smiled in the darkness. He made a mental note. A week later, Elias asked Sarah to call a number. "Mr. Blackwood?" she asked, reading the contact. "My personal attorney. Tell him to come. Alone. And tell him to bring the video will kit." Sarah made the call. She didn't ask why. She assumed he was finally signing the papers for Markus. Arthur Blackwood arrived 2 hours later. He was a man made of sharp angles and expensive wool suits. He had been Elias's lawyer for 40 years. "Elias," Blackwood nodded. You look alert. I have clarity, Arthur, Elias said. I need to make a new will, and I need to revoke all previous power of attorneys. The children won't like that. The children don't need to know, not yet. Blackwood set up a camera on a tripod at the foot of the bed. Sarah, Elias said, stay. Oh, I shouldn't, Sarah said, backing away. This is private. Stay, Elias commanded gently. I need a witness who isn't on my payroll, and I want you to hear this. Sarah stood in the corner. The camera started recording. I, Elias Thorne, being of sound mind and body, he spoke for 20 minutes. He outlined his assets, the stocks, the bonds, the real estate portfolio, the hidden offshore accounts. Then he came to the distribution. When he finished speaking, Arthur Blackwood turned off the camera. He looked at Elias with a stunned expression. Elias, are you sure? This will cause a war. They will sue. They will drag your name through the mud. Let them, Elias said. I've included the no contest clause. Yes, but still. It's done, Arthur. Draft it. I'll sign it tonight. Elias looked at Sarah. She was staring at him, mouth slightly open. Mr. Thorne, she whispered, you can't. I can, Elias said, and I did. Now bring me some ice water. My throat is dry. Elias Thorne died 3 weeks later, peacefully in his sleep. Sarah was holding his hand. She cried, real ugly tears. She cried not for the billionaire, but for the old man who liked jazz and told stories about coal mines. She cried for the friend who was lonely in a room full of expensive furniture. Marcus and Juliette arrived an hour after the death pronouncement. They didn't cry. Marcus immediately walked to the closet and started looking for a safe. Juliette called her husband. He's gone. Yeah. Book the flight to Cabo for next week. We'll need a vacation after the funeral. Sarah watched them. She felt a burning anger in her chest. He asked for you, Sarah said to Marcus. Last night. He called your name. It was a lie. Elias hadn't called for them. But Sarah wanted to see if there was any humanity left in him. Marcus didn't even turn around. Yeah? Well, he was probably delirious. Where is his watch? The Patek Philippe. It was on the nightstand. I put it in the personal effects bag, Sarah said coldly. With the security officer. Good, Marcus said. That watch is worth $80,000. Sarah grabbed her purse and walked out. She couldn't breathe the same air as them. The funeral was a media event. It was held at St. Patrick's Cathedral. The mayor was there, business rivals were there. Marcus gave the eulogy. He spoke about his father's vision, his tenacity, and his legacy. He didn't mention a single personal story. He sounded like he was reading a Wikipedia page. Juliette wore a black veil that looked like it was from a Parisian runway. She dabbed dry eyes with a lace handkerchief. Sarah sat in the very last row. She wore her only black dress. She brought a single white rose. After the service, while the VIPs were getting into limousines to go to the reception at the Plaza Hotel, Sarah walked to the casket. She placed the rose on the wood. Rest easy, whale, she whispered. You're free now. She turned to leave. Hey, you! It was Marcus. He was standing by the limo. You're the nurse, right, Sarah? Yes. Did my father give you anything before he died? A key? A flash drive? Any papers? No, Sarah said. If you took anything, we'll find out, Marcus warned. We are auditing the room. I took nothing, Sarah said, because he had nothing you cared about. She walked away. 2 weeks later, The reading of the last will and testament of Elias Thorne was scheduled for 10 a.m. at the offices of Blackwood and Associates. The conference room was massive. The table was mahogany. Marcus sat at the head of the table. He had brought his own lawyer, a shark named Mr. Sterling, no relation to Elias. Juliette sat next to him, scrolling on Instagram. Her husband, Chad, was bored. "Let's get this over with, Blackwood," Marcus said. "I have a meeting at 1 o'clock. "Just give us the numbers. What's the total valuation? $80 million? 90? "We estimate the estate at roughly $86 million post-tax," Blackwood said calmly. Marcus smirked. He high-fived Chad. Boom. The door opened. The receptionist walked in. "Mr. Blackwood, she's here." "Send her in." Sarah walked in. She was wearing her scrubs. She had just come off a night shift. She looked terrified. "What is she doing here?" Juliette sneered. "The help?" "She is a named beneficiary," Blackwood said. "Sit down, Miss Miller." Sarah sat at the far end of the table. She felt small. "Proceed." Marcus waved his hand dismissively. "Probably left her a couple thousand for wiping his ass. Whatever. Read it." Blackwood put on his reading glasses. He opened the leather folder. "I, Elias Thorne, being of sound mind." He read through the preamble, the burial instructions, the charitable donations, small amounts to the fire department and the library. Then the room got quiet. Article 4. Distribution to heirs. Blackwood cleared his throat. He looked directly at Marcus and Juliette. "To my son, Marcus Thorne, and my daughter, Juliette Thorne." Marcus leaned forward, eyes gleaming. "Who have not visited me on a holiday in 6 years, who did not call me on my birthday, and who attempted to sell my home while I was sleeping in it." Marcus's face dropped. "What is this?" "I leave the sum of $1 each." Silence. Absolute, vacuum-sealed silence. Juliette let out a laugh, a sharp, nervous bark. "That's a joke, right? You skipped a page. It's a trust, right? $1 is a placeholder for the trust." "It is not a joke," Blackwood said icily. "The will explicitly states $1. This is a legal tactic, as you know, Marcus. By leaving you a specific amount, it proves he did not forget you. He remembered you perfectly. He remembered exactly how much you valued him." "This is insanity." Marcus stood up, slamming his fists on the table. "He was senile. He was manipulated. I'll contest this. I'll tie this estate up in court for 50 years. "Sit down, Marcus," Blackwood said. His voice was like a whip. "Before you threaten legal action, you should hear Article 5. Article 5? To the residual beneficiary. Blackwood turned to Sarah. Sarah was trembling. She gripped the edge of the table. To Sarah Miller, Blackwood read. The woman who held my hand when the lights went out. The woman who brought me ice when no one else would. The only person who treated me like a human being in my final days. Sarah started to cry. I leave the remainder of my estate, including the Greenwich property, the industrial holdings, the securities portfolio, and the Jaguar collection. Total value, approximately $86 million. The room exploded. You bitch! Juliette screamed, lunging across the table. Her husband had to hold her back. You stole our money. You gold-digging whore. You drugged him. Marcus was purple. He pointed a shaking finger at Blackwood. This is fraud. Undue influence. She was his nurse. It's illegal. A caregiver cannot inherit. Usually true, Blackwood said calmly, which is why Elias prepared for this. Blackwood pressed a button on the wall. A screen descended. The video started playing. It was Elias in his hospital bed. He looked weak, but his eyes were sharp. "Hello, Marcus. Hello, Juliette," Video Elias said. The room went silent again. "If you are watching this, you are angry. You are screaming fraud. You are blaming Sarah. Don't. She didn't know I was doing this. In fact, she told me not to." Video Elias paused to cough. "I am doing this because I watched you. I watched you check your watches when you visited. I watched you talk about my death like a business transaction. You don't need my money. You have plenty. But you have no character. Sarah has character. She has a heart. And now she has the means to change the world. I am giving it to her because she was the daughter I wished I had. And Marcus, regarding your threat to sue, Mr. Blackwood has a folder. In it are the transcripts of the phone calls you made from my room. The ones where you discussed hiding assets from the IRS. If you contest this will, those transcripts go to the federal authorities." Video Elias smiled, a mischievous, shark-like smile. "Take the dollar, son. Invest it wisely." The screen went black. Marcus fell back into his chair. He looked like he had been shot. He knew about the calls. He thought his father was asleep. Juliette was sobbing. "My lifestyle. I can't live on my husband's salary. Daddy, please." Blackwood reached into his pocket. He pulled out 2 crisp $1 bills. He slid one to Marcus. He slid one to Juliette. "We require a signature of receipt," Blackwood said. Sarah sat frozen. She couldn't move. $86 million. Marcus stared at the dollar bill. The face of George Washington stared back. He stood up. He didn't sign. He didn't speak. He walked out of the room, a broken man. Juliette followed, wailing. The room was quiet. Just Sarah and Mr. Blackwood. "Is it real?" Sarah whispered. "It is very real, Sarah," Blackwood smiled. "You are now the wealthiest woman in this zip code." "I don't want it," Sarah said. "It's too much. It's blood money. They hate me." "It's not blood money," Blackwood said. "It's love money. Elias wanted this. He wanted you to have peace. Remember? A backyard for Leo?" "A backyard," Sarah repeated. "And," Blackwood added, "he left one specific instruction for you." "What?" "He wants you to keep the manufacturing plant open. Don't sell it. The workers depend on it. He trusts you to run it with heart, not just for profit." Sarah wiped her tears. She thought about her Honda. She thought about Leo sleeping in a cramped apartment. She thought about the patients at the Pines who had no one. "Okay," Sarah said. She stood up. She looked different, taller. "I'll take it." 1 year later. The house was beautiful. It wasn't a mansion. It was a charming 4-bedroom farmhouse with a wraparound porch. But the backyard was the masterpiece. It had a swing set. It had a treehouse. It had a garden full of tomatoes and peppers. Sarah sat on the porch drinking tea. Ice water sat on the table next to her. She wasn't wearing scrubs. She was wearing jeans and a t-shirt. She had set up a foundation, the Elias Thorne Foundation for Elder Care. It paid for visitors, music therapy, and better food for nursing homes across the state. She kept the steel plant. She fired the management team that Marcus had installed and hired back the old foreman. Profits were up 15%. She drove a new car, not a Lamborghini, a Volvo SUV. Safe, reliable. Leo ran past her, chasing a golden retriever puppy. "Mum, watch this!" Leo yelled, jumping off the swing. Sarah smiled. "I'm watching, baby." She looked up at the sky. "Thank you, Elias," she whispered. Somewhere, in the great beyond, she imagined Elias Thorne was sitting in a comfortable chair, listening to Duke Ellington, and smiling at the best investment he ever made.